Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm bringing you the next episode in the story of Tieu San and CEO Hai. In the previous episode, you learned that Tieu San is pregnant. Hai and his mother have been giving her constant care, love, and attention, looking after her in every little detail. Little Ivy is also eagerly waiting for the baby to be born, counting each day and cherishing every moment as it passes. Time has been quietly moving along during the pregnancy, and today, let's continue watching the video to discover what happens next. In the afternoon, the small house felt unusually quiet. The space seemed to slow down, with only pale sunlight slipping through the window, gently falling onto the floor and the familiar sofa. Tieu San leaned back against the seat, her body slightly tilted to one side to find a more comfortable position. One hand rested on her belly, softly rubbing it out of habit, while her breathing slowed after a long wave of exhaustion. These days, she no longer had the strength to move around as much as before. Standing for just a little too long would make her back ache, her legs growing heavy, as if carrying all the fatigue that had been building day by day along with her growing belly. She sat there quietly, her gaze softening, occasionally closing her eyes as if to regain some energy. The silence in the house made even the smallest sounds more noticeable, the gentle ticking of the wall clock, the soft breeze passing through the doorframe, and the steady rhythm of her own breathing. On the floor, little Ivy was sitting and playing with building blocks. The colorful pieces were carefully placed one by one. Ivy played with great focus, but from time to time, she would look up toward the sofa where her mother was sitting. Her eyes would linger on Tieu San's face for a few seconds before she lowered her head and continued playing. After a while, Ivy hugged the entire box of toys and scooted closer to the sofa, pulling it right to her mother's feet, as if afraid that if she looked away for even a moment, her mother would slip out of sight. Tieu San noticed this small action. She looked at Ivy, the corners of her lips curving into a very gentle smile. She said nothing, only quietly reached out to stroke her daughter's hair, the movement slow but filled with affection. Ivy looked up at her mother, then lowered her head to keep playing, but the distance between the two of them was now closer than before. Just then, the doorbell rang, breaking the stillness of the house. The sound wasn't loud, but it was enough to draw attention. Ivy startled and looked up, while Tieu San gently turned her head toward the door, a trace of curiosity in her eyes. CEO Hai stepped out from the kitchen, quickly wiping his hands before walking to the door. When he opened it, his mother was standing outside. In her hands were two bags, one big and one small. One contained prepared food, while the other was nearly full of baby items, tiny clothes, soft towels, brand new baby bottles, all neatly arranged. "Where's Ivy, my dear?" Hai's mother asked as she bent down to change her shoes, her voice familiar and warm. Hearing her voice, Ivy immediately abandoned her game. She jumped to her feet and ran over to hug her grandmother's legs, her face lighting up instantly. Hai's mother bent down and patted Ivy's head, her eyes gentle and kind. "Come here with Grandma. Today, Grandma bought lots of things for the baby." Hearing that, Ivy hugged her even tighter, then turned to look toward Tieu San as if proudly showing her. Tieu San watched the scene, her gaze softening. She smiled faintly, not a strong smile, but enough to show the sense of reassurance and warmth within it. Hai's mother walked over to the sofa, set the bags down, and gently helped Tieu San sit more upright. She adjusted the pillow behind her back, her movements slow and careful. Lowering her voice, she spoke softly. "I just came by for a bit to check on you. Let Ivy stay at my place for a while so you can rest." Tieu San looked up at Hai's mother, a hint of emotion flickering in her eyes. She nodded gently, one hand still resting on her belly, her breathing becoming a little steadier as she felt that familiar care and concern. The small house returned to its earlier quiet, but now, within that space, there was an added sense of warmth, gentle and unhurried, continuing alongside the days of pregnancy as they passed little by little. In the days that followed, Tieu San's pace of life became a little lighter, slower and more steady than before. She no longer tried to manage everything on her own like she had during the early months, but instead learned to rest more and listen to her body more carefully with each passing day. In the mornings, she often woke up a bit later, sat by the window to breathe in the fresh air, then returned to the familiar sofa, which had become her main place of rest during this time. Every few days, Hai's mother would come by. Some days, she arrived early and took Ivy back to her place to play for the entire afternoon so that Tieu could rest in peace. Other days, she stopped by only briefly, bringing along a bowl of hot porridge still steaming, warm pregnancy milk, or a few new baby items she had just bought, carefully placing them neatly in one corner. She did everything very gently, almost without making any noise, as if afraid that even the slightest carelessness might tire Tieu further. She never stayed long. Usually, she would just help Tieu lie more comfortably, adjust the pillow behind her back, pull the blanket up carefully, then sit beside her and ask a few short questions. Before leaving, she would always remind her in the same calm, familiar voice. "If you feel tired or unwell, call me right away." Every time she heard those words, Tieu would quietly nod. Sometimes she said nothing at all, only gently holding Hai's mother's hand as a way of responding. Even though CEO Hai was busy with work, he always tried to come home early in the evenings. On some days, he even brought work back with him, but still stayed in the living room so he could keep an eye on both mother and daughter. After dinner, he would quickly tidy up, then sit down beside Tieu, asking whether she felt more tired, or if she needed to lie down and rest earlier. The questions repeated every day, yet he never sounded careless or impatient. One evening, Tieu unknowingly fell asleep on the sofa. When Hai passed by and saw her sleeping, he didn't wake her. He quietly took a thin blanket and covered her, adjusting it to keep her a little warmer. Ivy had just been brought home by her grandmother. As she entered the house and saw her mother asleep, she slowed down, no longer running around like she usually did. Ivy gently climbed onto the sofa, sat close beside her mother, placed her small hand on Tieu belly, then leaned her ear against it, listening for a long time, so focused that she almost forgot everything around her. CEO Hai watched his daughter from a distance. He didn't say anything, only stepped closer and gently stroked Ivy's hair. Ivy looked up at him briefly, then lowered her head again, staying right where she was beside her mother. That night, Tieu suddenly woke up because of a pain that lasted longer than usual. It was no longer the mild, fleeting discomfort she had felt before. This time, the pain made her grip the bed sheet tightly, her breathing becoming more rapid. She shifted slightly, trying to endure it, but the discomfort was clearly written across her face. CEO Hai, who was sleeping beside her, immediately sat up when he sensed something was wrong. "San, does it hurt a lot?" he asked, his voice low and urgent. Tieu didn't answer right away. She only nodded faintly, her hands still clenched, her eyes blurred with exhaustion. Ivy also woke up. She ran from the next room and stood at the doorway, her eyes wide as she looked at her mother. She didn't dare step inside right away, just stood there, gripping the edge of the doorframe with both hands, her expression tense and worried. CEO Hai immediately grabbed his phone and called his mother. "Mom, San is in pain." He tried to keep his voice calm, but the worry was impossible to hide. Less than 15 minutes later, Hai's mother arrived. She entered the room quickly, set her bag down, and went straight to the bed, helping Tieu sit up. Her hand rested on Tieu's shoulder, her voice firm yet comforting. "It's okay, my dear. I'm here." Tieu leaned lightly against her, her breathing still uneven. She turned toward Ivy, saw her standing at the door, and reached out to hold her hand. "Ivy, be good, go to Grandma's house, okay?" Her voice was soft and weak. Ivy didn't cry. She only held her mother's hand a little tighter, as if trying to hold on to that familiar feeling, then turned to look at her grandmother. After a few silent seconds, Ivy nodded very slightly, her eyes never leaving Tieu. In the car, Tieu tightly closed her eyes, her eyelashes trembling slightly with each wave of pain that now came more intensely than before. It was no longer the familiar dull ache of the past few days. This time, the pain was clearer, longer, making her body tense up instinctively. The hand resting on her belly slowly clenched, her fingers trembling, her breathing becoming short and rapid, as if she had to struggle just to keep it steady. CEO Hai sat in the driver's seat, his eyes fixed straight ahead. One hand held the steering wheel, while the other reached over to firmly grasp Tieu San's hand. Her palm felt colder than usual, her fingers tightening unconsciously, as if searching for something familiar to hold on to. Hai felt that grip clearly, stronger, more urgent, and it made his heart tighten. "I'm here. Don't be afraid." His voice lowered, trying to stay calm, yet the worry was impossible to hide. He spoke slowly, as if wanting each word to reach Tieu San, to let her know she was not alone in this moment. Tieu San didn't open her eyes. She only gave a very slight nod, using what little strength she had left to respond. Her breathing was still uneven, each inhale stretching her chest tight, then slowly exhaling, following the rhythm Hai's mother had told her to keep. In the back seat, Hai's mother sat close, one hand gently placed on Tieu San's back, rubbing in slow, circular motions. Her hand was warm and steady, every movement carrying a familiar sense of reassurance. She leaned forward slightly, her voice soft but clear, calm and steady. "Breathe evenly, my dear, take a deep breath, then slowly breathe out." Tieu San tried to follow. Every breath now required great effort, but Hai's mother's voice became an anchor, keeping her from being swept away by the waves of pain rising again and again. Inside the enclosed car, the air grew heavier. The steady hum of the engine blended with Tieu San's rapid breathing and CEO Hai's tense silence. He said nothing more, only tightened his grip on her hand slightly, a quiet reminder that he was still there, right beside her. In Tieu San's mind, all sounds seemed to fade. Between the waves of pain, the clearest image that surfaced was a moment from not long ago. Ivy standing at her grandmother's doorway, her small hand held by Hai's mother. The child walked slowly, then turned her head back to look at her mother. That gaze lingered for a long time, as if trying to memorize the image of Tieu San standing in the room, exhausted, yet still forcing a reassuring smile for her daughter. She remembered clearly the moment the door closed. The sound wasn't loud, but it echoed sharply in her heart. Ivy didn't cry, didn't call out for her mother. She only looked back one last time before finally turning away. That image kept replaying in Tieu San's mind, vivid enough to make her heart ache, not only from physical pain, but from the vague worry slowly spreading within her. Her hand tightened around CEO Hai's a little more, almost unconsciously. He felt it and slightly turned his head to look at her. Tieu San's eyes were still closed, her face paler now, sweat beading lightly on her forehead. Behind her, Hai's mother continued to rub her back, her movements steady and unchanged, her voice patiently repeating each breathing cue. The car continued moving through the night, carrying the heavy worry of all three of them, along with the silent thoughts swirling inside Tieu San, still not yet formed into words. The hospital was brightly lit, white lights stretching across the emergency area and the hallway leading to the delivery room. The space no longer held the stillness of late night, instead, it was filled with hurried footsteps, the rapid rolling of stretchers across the tiled floor, and the short, urgent calls of medical staff echoing continuously. Everything blended together into a rushed rhythm that made one's heart race even while standing still. Tieu San was placed onto a stretcher. She lay there, her face pale from exhaustion and pain, her lips pressed together tightly. Her hair was slightly disheveled, a few strands sticking to her forehead from sweat. She tried to keep her breathing steady, but the waves of pain continued, making the hand resting on her chest tighten instinctively. As the stretcher was pushed quickly toward the delivery room doors, the overhead lights swept across her face in fragments, bright, then dim, like fleeting moments passing by too fast. Just before the stretcher reached the door, Tieu San suddenly turned her head. Her eyes searched instinctively, though even she wasn't sure what she was hoping to see. In the hallway, Hai's mother was standing there. She stood slightly to the side, her hands clasped tightly in front of her chest, fingers interlaced. Her eyes were red, her gaze fixed on every movement of the stretcher, not looking away for even a second. Their eyes met for a brief moment. Tieu San could clearly see the worry on her mother-in-law's face, along with the tension she was trying hard to suppress. She said nothing, only gave a small nod, a silent gesture of encouragement sent to her daughter-in-law. Beside the stretcher, CEO Hai was still holding his wife's hand tightly. From the moment they arrived at the hospital, he had barely let go for even a second. His grip was firm, as if trying to pass some strength to her, and at the same time to keep himself from the emptiness rising in his chest. He walked alongside the stretcher step by step, his eyes never leaving Tieu San's face. "I'm right here." His voice was low and steady, spoken quickly but clearly, like a promise repeated one last time before he had to let go. Tieu San heard him. She gave a slight nod, an almost imperceptible movement, made with all the strength she had left. Tears slid down onto the pillow, soaking into the white fabric. Not from fear, and not entirely from pain, but because in that moment, she felt so clearly her own fragility, and the love and worry surrounding her. The delivery room door slowly closed. The metallic sound echoed sharply, separating the two spaces, and leaving CEO Hai and his mother outside. When the door fully shut, the hallway seemed to pause for a beat. CEO Hai stood frozen in place, his hands still held in the position where he had just been gripping his wife's, now holding nothing but empty air. He didn't sit down. He didn't walk away. He stood silently in the hallway, his eyes fixed on the closed delivery room door. In his mind, it wasn't only worry for Tieu San inside that room, but also the image of his little daughter at her grandmother's house. Ivy was probably asleep by now, or perhaps still tossing and turning, hugging her familiar teddy bear, waiting for her mother to come home. He pictured Ivy's eyes when she heard that her mother had gone to the hospital, remembered the very slight nod she had given when she let go of her mother's hand. In those thoughts, images of Tieu San, Ivy, and the unborn baby intertwined, a small family waiting to become complete, yet having to pass through this tense moment first. CEO Hai slowly clenched his hands, took a deep breath, his gaze still fixed on the door ahead. In the hallway, the lights remained bright, time continued to pass, and everything seemed to be waiting for whatever lay beyond that door. Stay tuned for the next episode to find out what happens next.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Nay thì mình tiếp tục đưa đến video tiếp theo về câu chuyện của Tiểu San và nha mọi người. Chào mọi người, hẹn gặp lại ở video sau. Bye bye, tạm biệt mọi người nhé.